Hello, I'm going to tell you about real estate values in Long Island City over the past decade. Just today, I got the market reports from Corcoran uh, going through numbers for Long Island City from 2010 to the end of 2019. And before you say, but CT, we're in 2020 and now the coronavirus has changed everything. The coronavirus has not changed everything. It has changed some things. But what's really important is you need to have historical context for where neighborhoods are going and what the plans are and what's been happening there so that you can then try and project the future, right? So also, if you want to hear about my projections of the future, or at least what we should be paying attention to in terms of pricing for during the coronavirus, watch my previous videos on it because I've been studying this stuff and I continue to study it day in and day out. So with that said, Long Island City has been the fastest growing neighborhood in Queens, the fastest growing neighborhood in New York City, and the fastest growing neighborhood all across the country, beating out places, every other city in the nation. And this is before the Amazon announcement that happened, I don't know, this is a year and a half ago or something. And the Amazon announcement, oh, we're going to Long Island City, and then that ended up not happening. You know, the pricing and the creation of these units, these were all planned before that, and they continue after it. So that had a little blip of an effect, but not that much of an effect on the neighborhood. Whether or not they should have been here is a whole nother story. But with that, let me take you to some of these articles. So this is an article that I read in the New Yorker some time ago, it's New York Magazine, and life in Long Island City, the country's fastest growing neighborhood. Since 2010, more than 12,000 apartments have been built there, with over 9,000 more on the way. That's more than in any other neighborhood in any other city in the country, more than downtown Los Angeles, the runner-up, or any area of booming Brooklyn. Brooklyn has done very well over the past 10 years, but it hasn't seen the same growth in terms of volume of apartments. Queens now has a skyline and a restless one, with developers competing to announce plans for what will be the borough's tallest building. There's a building called Skyline Tower, which is going to be the its first $1 billion sellout in Long Island City, a huge residential condo tower that they're referencing, which had a different name originally. So, this has been a crazy. These are crazy numbers. Over 20,000 units in the past 10 years built in Long Island City. That's a lot. So, with that, let's go to the numbers for the Corcoran report. And here you can see that for condos, we're talking about condos and co-ops now. In the last decade, condos have seen a 5.7% appreciation as average price, 5.2% for median, and 7.6% average price per square foot, which actually suggests, right, that people are willing to pay more for larger apartments than they are for the smaller ones. And I think that's very possible that some of the people that you see coming out to Long Island City are people who maybe they work in Manhattan, maybe they lived in Manhattan, but they move across the river and can get a little bit more space for their money, and maybe an extra bedroom becomes doable for them. That said, the average prices in Long Island City are not that cheap. Okay, so looking over here, this is for condos again. Average prices in 2019, a studio cost $653,000. A one-bedroom, $925,000, a two-bedroom, $1.37 million, and a three-bedroom, $2.06 million. This is for condos. That is not a cheap two-bedroom, relatively speaking. I mean, those are Manhattan prices. You can find two bedrooms cheaper in Manhattan than you can in Long Island City. There's not as much of a breadth of different spaces in Long Island City than there are in Manhattan. But certainly you can find much more expensive properties in Manhattan as well. But good luck finding a 2-bedroom condo in Long Island City for under 3, maybe $1.2 million, unless it's like a land lease building. There's one building that's kind of a land lease, and that doesn't really count because the expenses are so high, monthly expenses. So anyway, now it's interesting to look. Yeah, that 7.6% annualized rate of change in price per square foot, which outpaces the value of the market in general. Also, right here, look at the price per square foot in 2019 for a studio. The average price per square foot is $1,250 a square foot. A 1-bedroom is $1,256. A 2-bedroom is $1,286. A 3-bedroom is $1,361 per square foot. Now, what does that tell you? That tells you two things. First is that as you go up in bedrooms, people are willing to pay more per square foot. So it might be worth springing for that extra bedroom if you are able to do that, because you might get more out of it in the long run. The other thing, it tells you that people will typically pay a little bit of a premium for bigger, larger, typically nicer apartments. This is true. We see this in penthouses. We see this in Manhattan. We see it all over the place. But that is sort of proof in the pudding right there of those numbers. So just something to think about in terms of, real estate in Long Island City. Now, back to the report. I just want to bring you down here to the 10-year report now for co-ops. Now, what's interesting about the co-ops is they've seen less of an appreciation, 3.1% annualized appreciation. There, you can look also at the number of sales by year. There's not nearly as many co-ops in Long Island City as there are condos. Good luck finding a co-op that is, like a co-op that is on the market. There are very few. I've looked at a few. A lot of them are in older buildings with no amenities and walk-ups. So some of the lower pricing makes sense because a lot of the condo buildings in Long Island City, especially the big ones, have crazy amenities, pools and gyms and libraries and yards and all kinds of great stuff that you just don't see in the co-ops here, if you can find a co-op. So the other thing about the average price, when you look at the average price here for co-ops, you have, for a 2-bedroom, you have $765,000, and for a 3-bedroom, $1.28 million. Now, when you look at $765,000 for the average price of a co-op in Long Island City versus the average price of a condo being 1.37 right here, that is roughly, I would say, my math, 56% of the value of a condo, right? The price of a co-op. This is a big difference in pricing. Again, a lot of that also has to do with small numbers, and I have seen some co-ops that were a little more expensive than what those numbers suggest. But overall, I think there's some accuracy to this data. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that the condos that are coming into the neighborhood are all new development, expensive, and with a lot of amenities attached to the building oftentimes. Okay, so that's a good little primer on Long Island City. If you want more info on Long Island City because you're thinking about buying or selling there, then certainly you're welcome to contact me. I'm happy to talk about it. I know the neighborhood really well. I can tell you about restaurants and all that stuff. I also have on my site, I have an article that I did. This is on the realestatenerd.com, and you can see it here. You go to realestatenerd.com, you can go to neighborhoods, and then you will find buying real estate in Long Island City, the nicest part of Midtown. Thank you. Yes, I really appreciated that. This is a newcomer's guide to buying real estate in Long Island City. I talk about, things from like the unbelievable transportation options you have here. This is like you're 15 minutes from Union Square, you're 3 stops to Times Square, or 1 stop to Grand Central. The 7 E, M, F, N, W, R, and G trains all stop in Long Island City. You're near the LIRR stations. You're near the LIE, the Midtown Tunnel, the Queensboro Bridge. And then I go through some of the neighborhoods as well. Like I said, Long Island City is not all that cheap, although there are some deals to be had. And things like flood maps, those are important to know if you are thinking of buying here, because that in 2012, during Katrina, things got hit pretty hard here. There was a lot of flooding. So I have some experience listing out here. I've had two of the most expensive listings in the history of Long Island City, a townhouse and a 3+ office bedroom condo. And there is just some really great options for purchase out here. So I highly recommend checking it out, and I highly recommend asking me questions, and I highly recommend that you do that from a distance, because we are still on lockdown. So if you have any questions, please reach out. Stay healthy, stay home, stay distanced, and I will talk to you again.